Well, now I want to turn to Martin Brechbiel, MMR, for his Scratch Building Corner. Martin, welcome.
Thank you, Jim. Part two of our exacta passenger car story. This is where we stopped last week. I had stained the interior walls, touched up the yellow paint around the windows, and alluded to the fact that we will maybe even complete this car this week. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember making my slides, that we will. But first, I'm going to add a carpet down the middle of the aisle. This is just dollhouse wallpaper. And I wish I could tell you when and where I got this. It was so long ago that the shop is long, long gone. But there's all kinds of dollhouse stuff that's available that could be used. And a sheet of this has been lasting me for about 20 years now. So, you know, a slice out of a sheet goes a long ways. So you can do a lot of cars. So unfortunately, that means a lot of my cars have the same carpeting on the inside, regardless of the lettering on the outside of the car. They all went to the same outlet store and bought their carpet. Nobody does that anymore, do they? Okay, so we put the one side wall back on. I said last week, though, those holes in the side where the nails were are very important because that lets me put the right side on the right side of the car base. It also puts it in perfect alignment back to where it belongs. And it gives it something to hold it in place while the glue, which in this case was goo and CA, and the nails, all secure that side. Once the side's on, tight, good and tight, I had saved the stove casting when I did the salvage work originally. Those are actually adequate. There's a little shielding piece behind it that goes up. It's the one single window in the side. So there's another stove on the mirror image, or not mirror image, rotational symmetry, sorry, on the other side. So it'll be two stoves. So it'll be a nice toasty car for passengers. The seats are in place on this side. And I did this because I learned over the years putting seating in with both sides in place at the same time is hard when you have big fat fingers, even with tweezers and hemostats and what have you. So this take advantage of one side being open. I can slide things in, see where it's all going to go up against the windows, etc., and place them without running into too many difficulties. Okay, so the other side. You put the other wall in. You got to put the other side on because you have to put the seats up against it. So eventually you end up struggling putting things in place with multiple tweezers, hemostats, etc., with glue on the bottom, and praying you don't make too much of a mess when you do it. Same thing again, the nail holes helped keep it all in alignment. The tricky part was putting the end on because I didn't know which end belonged to which end. And I apparently got lucky and grabbed or it doesn't matter. And either way, they go in between in between the sides. And I didn't put wood, you can't really tell, I didn't put wood at the bottom of this. I just painted it brown. Since I can't see it, I figured you can't see it either. Close enough, good enough, leave it alone. And going back and putting in wood on the ends is a little more tricky than you really wanted to be confronted with. Working around the door, working around the joint in the corner, I just said, painting it brown's a lot easier. We'll stop there and be happy. And just another view of the same thing. The end's on there. And you can see it sits a little low. Well, the roof takes care of that. The roof actually fits down over this. And there is the roof. Fancy that. Okay, so they put the other end on and insert it in between the two sides, snaps down between the two and into the end platform. So it's not as simple as it seems. It's got to fit in between two sides and into a slot in the floor. on the end platform. But once in place, it's actually rather sturdy, rather tight. This is a rather well-designed kit, despite being at least 10 years older than me. So once it's in place, not a problem. The roof, I covered it with canvas, which is basically single-ply napkins. I did that because there was too much wood grain showing on this. I just didn't like the way it looked. Okay, so I updated one thing on the exterior. So it's covered with the napkin, single-ply overlapping napkins all over the place, all the way down and around the corners and on the ends, on the duckbill. It's painted dark, lark dark gray, and the smoke jacks were added after I drilled out the holes, which was interesting because the metal bases for the original jacks were still there. So the drill really just pushed them out. Everything fit, it just snapped into place. And there's nothing holding that roof except friction and gravity. And I said to myself, don't mess with it. It's in place. And if you really have to get it apart someday to do something on the inside, now you can, but don't mess with it any more than you already have. Fits nice and snug. And there's the side view of it. I did nothing to the exterior parts, sides or the sides or the ends, other than a sponge and some warm water. Just scrubbed it clean. I left that hand lettering right where it is. It's kind of odd because there's other lettering actually underneath of the hand lettering that is in the embossed sides. We'll get to that with the other car, but I didn't see any purpose to messing with all this hand lettering, particularly around the windows. I thought it looked pretty sharp, and I didn't want to. I figured whatever I did to it would probably make it much worse. So stop before I ruin it. And that may be a good lesson on a lot of preservation or restoration work. I mean, if there's a line between restoration and preservation and making a disaster out of something that was worth saving. So put the trucks back on. I did not save the Lincoln pin coupler that was at the one end. I got some more Lincoln pin couplers from Bernie Kopinski, and those are beautiful for use, but I thought to actually put those in, I would have had to modify the openings at the ends on the underbody, under the platforms, and I thought I really didn't want to do that. So I found that I actually had some old black plastic All Nation dummy couplers, which with just a little bit of sanding slid right through the opening, and a single screw where the Lincoln pin coupler was secured them perfectly fine where they were. And they're in a coupler pocket now, so they don't swivel all over the place. I think they look okay. They're certainly adequate. And that's just another view of the same car, the other side of the car. Okay, so next year, this is the other car. This is the other Exacta car. It's actually an earlier car. This one's stamped, pressed, embossed copper alloy. It's considerably heavier. It looks like it's a pretty solid car. It's filthy, and it's got some funky lettering on it, and you can see it's got a lot of filth on it. And if it looks like it's pretty solid until you flip it over and you can hear the entire interior rattling around in it. So that's where we start next year, is figuring out how to take this apart without ruining it. So I'll stop there, and we'll be back next year with the second Exacta car.
Well, that first one's a good looking car, Martin.
Not bad for a 70, 80-year-old car.
Not bad at all.
I mean, we should look so good.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody got any questions for Martin?
I do, Martin.
Yeah,
Pat. The ends of that passenger car, the one you just did, there's there dummy lights or something on that thing on the end? Like
There
clear?
are on the red one.
Okay.
There weren't on the yellow one, but the brackets were there.
Oh, okay. That's what I wondered what that was.
They're the brackets for marker lights, whatever you want.
Or is it something to light the stair or the steps going up maybe or something?
Right. But the red one has them on the one end,
Okay.
and they're actually pretty significant pieces of brass
Mm-hmm.
and
We'll see
cast
it.
bronze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Martin. Good job.
Sure.
Well, Martin, have a happy Christmas.
You and everybody else the same.
Thank you so much.